So, silviculture, relatively loosely defined, is the art and science of managing your forest. We can manage our forest for a whole host of different objectives. Commonly, people associate silviculture with timber production, but that's just one of the many different objectives one can have when managing their forest. There are aesthetic management recommendations one can achieve with silviculture. You can enhance wildlife habitat. You can manage watersheds using silviculture. But basically, silviculture is the catch-all umbrella term defining all of the long litany of different treatments one can put into use in their forests to accomplish any one of those goals or objectives. So when it comes to managing your forest and picking and choosing the winners long term, there are kind of three approaches, broadly speaking. There's timber stand improvement, sometimes abbreviated TSI. There are thinning regimes or thinning options for you, and there's also crop tree release. All of these are very similar in that what we're intending to do is reduce the number of trees on a per acre basis and reallocate those resources that would have gone to the trees that we cut back to stems that we're leaving behind. In this case, we're going to talk about timber stand improvement. Timber stand improvement is sort of a loose term that basically refers to any sort of management that's intended to improve your stand or your forest. So that means, generally speaking, getting rid of poorly shapen stems, so stems that are really sinuous, have crook, have sweep, which is kind of a bow in the stem. All of those trees are not going to be growing into merchantable saw timber. So rather than have resources taken up by those stems that really have no merchantable future, we tend to remove those stems. Stems that are diseased or likely to be diseased. That's another example of a stem for removal in timber stand improvement. The final likely candidate for removal in a timber stand improvement is invasive species, and I'm actually standing next to one right here. This is a Paulownia. We can tell that mostly during the summer by its unique leaves. Somewhat similar to catalpa, but they have ridges along the sides or edges of those leaves that make them stand out from the majority of the trees that we have here in Virginia. Other examples that are really classic, tree of heaven is a really pervasive and nasty invasive tree species, another good target for removal. But in timber stand improvement, poorly formed trees, diseased trees, or invasive species are prime candidates for removal.